This time in the Magic Kitchen, we are joined by author Deborah Blake.
I'm Leandra Witchwood.
And I'm Elise Wells.
And welcome to the Magic Kitchen podcast, where we talk about magic, kitchen witchcraft, herbs,
and everything in between.
As you may know, the Magic Kitchen podcast is fully and independently funded by the Witchwood Tea House. So show us some support and head over to thewitchwoodteahouse.com to purchase some deliciously hand-blended loose-leaf teas or one of my other botanical products. As a special thank you for your support, please use POD15 at checkout to take 15% off of your next order. So without any further ado, let's get to the episode. Blessed be.
So you're in Temple Fest, even though we're recording this and you're not, but you are. It's magic.
But I'm at Temple Fest. Yes, it's great. And I can't wait to tell everybody about it when I come back.
Yeah.
And all the different workshops. I'm trying to like get in as many workshops as I can. So yeah, I'm hoping to come back with some really juicy stuff.
Yes, I know. Me too. I'm like on pins and needles. I wish I could teleport and just be there.
I know.
Actually,
yeah, I think you would enjoy this a lot. It's
speaking of teleporting, weekend. It made me think of that question that came through. So,
yeah.
So some of you might have noticed if you click the show descriptions now, there is a new feature on Buzzsprout that allows you to send a text message. Yes. We wanted to tell you that text message gives us zero information. It tells us where you're from, but we can't see your name. We can't reply at all. There's no way to reply. So if you do use that function, I guess it's meant to send us like kudos, like
just
what
love.
You liked, and
send us some love.
So we would love to hear your love.
Yeah,
but
if you have a question, we will address it here on the podcast. So please send us questions so we can answer it one-on-one, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And some of you sent questions about yourselves that are obviously, personal questions we're not going to answer on the podcast publicly for the world. Yes. But so we can't answer you. It's not that we don't want to. So if you want to just copy and paste what you had sent us and email us, like I said, we can't even see your name. So we want to talk to you though. So send us your questions. You can find in the same show notes description where you saw send a text message, underneath is our contact links. So for me, it is seekingnoumena.com or Elise at seekingnoumena.com and leandrawitchwood.com.
Yeah, and info at leandrawitchwood.com.
Yes.
Is where you can email me or the Magic Kitchen podcast at Gmail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got our email still up and running. So you can email us there and that allows us to reply because it is so strange and confusing, like all these different ways. Like we also have SpeakPipe, which is where you can send voice messages.
A voice.
And that also we can't reply to, but at least that you put your name and I think maybe an email. So
maybe.
Yeah. But we always do our best to reply. So if we don't, it's probably because you sent it on a service that we can't see we can't reply to you.
Can't even see your number.
We would never ignore you.
Yeah. But definitely you still use that feature and like send us questions that we can answer on the show. And because I'm sure if you have the question, someone else has the same question.
100%.
Which brings us to the question that we want to address right now.
Yes.
So the question we got is how do you prevent unwanted astral visitors? And this is such a great question because there's so many methods. And keep in mind, like there's what I find a lot of witches run into right now is they're like, I don't want to do it wrong, or I don't know the right way to do it, or there's so many different ways to do it. There's a reason for that. Even in books that we read, the books that are off the shelf that are teaching us witchcraft, they're teaching us one perspective. So keep in mind that when we're practicing the craft, especially when we're going into the folk aspect of witchcraft, we're practicing from one perspective, one folk tradition, one style of tradition, one tradition that was created from the experiences of whoever's teaching it. So like in my tradition, if I don't want to astral travel, or if I don't want astral visitors, if I don't want any astral being annoying me while I'm sleeping, especially, I will put iron under my pillow. That's how I was taught. So that's just one example of one thing you can do. There's herbs you can use too. What are some of the ways that you would do that, Elise?
I would put a barrier around my bed. So, and let's be clear on that too. Astral travelers are going to visit you in your sleep because that's when they can get to you. Otherwise, you're not in the astral plane, you're awake. So, if you find someone is on your mind more than you want them to be, or like, like somebody is trying to put tendrils out there and like pull you into drama or something like that. In the waking world, I just make sure I shield against that. So one of the phrases I'll use in that instance is while I'm raising energy to form my shield for the day, I'll say anybody who doesn't have my highest good in mind cannot contact me. And it really works. I mean, like there was a situation I had where somebody just kept trying to be like, hey, did you hear about so-and-so? And I just don't do that. I don't do that. I don't talk about people behind their back. Nope. I don't gossip unless it's somebody's, birthday and we're doing a surprise party. I'm just not going to talk about them behind their back. So I didn't know how to get this person to stop doing it. I kept, putting it down, but I was like, I'm tired. And that was what I did. I added that phrase to my shield and it took care of itself. It did. But so for astral travelers, they're going to come to you in your sleep and they have to, I'll say like, this isn't something you need to be worried about, like on the reg. Like it's an intentional working that somebody's doing. If it's not, it would have to be a very intense bond. Like your child is trying to reach you. And when they're sleeping, they're dreaming of you. And so they show up in your dreams too. If they are your actual child, that makes sense that they could maybe subconsciously enter your thoughts. But for the most part, this is going to have to be an intentional thing for somebody to astral travel into your world. So if you find it's happening, I would cut contact with that person. If you know that's it's not consensual. They cannot do that. They should not do that. So I would do the mundane things that I need to do and keep them from bothering me. And then I would create a perimeter with black salt around my bed so that they could not come in. And one of the ingredients in black salt for some traditions is iron filings. So there's always that commonality. My black salt recipe is simpler. I use ash from my altar that I use in, just my offerings, my ritual stuff. And then I add salt to that. And I usually use, as local as I can find, sea salt. I'm in Greece, so I can actually manage that. There's also like Appalachian salt that you can get, black salt. Mm-hmm. So that's a really good one to use. Or if you have salt from an ancestral homeland, like Celtic sea salt is a really powerful ingredient. And then you can also add activated charcoal. You could use red brick dust. I know that's a popular option in like conjure and hoodoo. So yeah, but I would definitely do a protective perimeter. And energetically, if you use crystals, put some hematite around you, sleep with that under your bed. Malachite's coming to mind as well because it's such a powerful transmuter.
Yeah. And I would also remove anything from your space that might aid in activating psychic activity. So I know we love our crystals and we love having them around, but if you have something like labradorite near your bed, that's going to activate psychic activity. So that's going to open that door to astral visitors that you didn't invite to come and play with you while you're trying to sleep. Because let's face it, when you are in the astral plane while you're sleeping, you're not resting. Yeah. You're not sleeping. And you're literally traveling. You're literally active. So you wake up exhausted. You wake up drained. And so if you don't want that to happen, I would remove any crystal, any herbs even, mugwort, that sort of thing that would open up, even rose. So if you have roses in your room, anything that would activate that psychic connection, that opening that would allow unwanted travel to happen.
Yeah, that's true. It could even be an item from the person who's traveling to talk with you, that you've unwittingly, I should say, opened the channel for connection.
Right. Yeah. Because we sometimes forget that the things that we have around us they're active. They're energetically active. So if we're not being conscious and intentional with what we place in our space, these things can occur. Now, it doesn't say that it will. You can have roses in your room and not ever have unwanted travel or unwanted visitors. It's just that doesn't happen for you. They don't work that way for you, or it's just not powerful enough type thing. Your will is also very important to remember. Like, your will dictate a lot of how things work for you. Mm-hmm. So if you feel that the roses are causing the problem and that is the intention you have set for them, then they're gonna open that door for you.
Yeah. And I think I hear this often with ancestors, that they'll get visitation from ancestors and they can't turn it off. It's like a floodgate. And that, again, is about setting spiritual boundaries. Like, that's where the energy shielding is important. That's where having the awareness that you have the control over your energy. And we've recommended it before, but Jason Miller's book, Consorting with Spirits, is probably the best resource to teach that.
That's a great book. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Absolutely. And on the same vein of thinking about how your will plays a huge part in how effective your magic is going to be or not, I find prosperity magic is the number one way that people block themselves, often unwittingly, but what we put out into the universe, and not just in magic circles, not just in sacred space, but what we put out in our thoughts, in our actions, in the conversations we have with people, that determines what the universe will be able to give us. So if you have a money bowl and you're trying to attract money, you're doing a prosperity working, you're working with abundance magic, and you're trying to get money in your life, but you're also saying things to people like, oh, money doesn't matter to me. Oh, I am not the kind of person.
Money's the root of all evil.
Yeah, I am not the kind of person that needs money. Or I'd be so selfish if I felt like money was my motivation in my business. The universe is getting cross wires because they're like, wait, you have this little money bowl going over here, but you are telling me directly that you don't actually like money. So the universe is just looking at you like question mark emoji and
hands are up.
Shrug emoji, like I don't know what to do. And long story short, you ain't gonna get no money.
Right.
And that is why Leandra and I are participating in the Wealth and Witchery Summit, hosted by Wendy Mata of Bruja Botanica. Yeah. We love these summits. They are unbelievable wealths of resource. And this one is going to be absolutely no different. My course is on reframing the abundance mindset through natural magic. So I walk you through how nature views abundance and how, as a land spirits practitioner, I view abundance and how it is there to support us. And it is our birthright to support us through abundance. But our capitalist view of abundance only equals dollars and cents shifts that in our mind and makes us feel conflicted feelings. So we work through that. And then I give you practical tools and magic to use nature in your magic for abundance with that reframed mindset.
And then my class is on using plants for prosperity. So I walk you through connecting with those plants, and then I take you through some of the different plants that I like to use with a great meditation in the middle of it, where you can pause the recording and get yourself set up and then go through this kind of a tiny little ritual where we go through, connect with that plant and get that connection so that we can utilize the energy of that plant for our prosperity. And of course, I touch on different ways you can use the plants, from making room sprays to incense to teas to making sacred ash and that sort of thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and that's just two of us. I think there's 13
Oh gosh, there's so many.
Speakers, maybe more. And
13 or 16, I can't remember now, but there's a bunch.
And the other cool thing about this summit is it's free. It's 100% free. You just sign up. And if you do decide to sign up before the summit starts, which it starts the 4th of September and runs through the 6th of September, so it's a 3-day summit,
Yes.
If you decide to upgrade to the All Access Pass before it starts, it is only $77. And not only do you get lifetime access to the recordings, but you get all of our bonuses, which for me, that includes my complete introductory course on working with land spirits.
Yeah. And then for me, I gave you the energy mastery, which will help you master your energy for moving forward with prosperity magic. Yeah. So this is such an important, it's important work, because I love these summits. This is why I love these summits, because you get to hear from a variety of speakers from all different types of paths and walks of life. So people that, you know, from brujerías to Celtic witches to I forget her name. I love her work, but she does knitting, she does crochet, and that's her magic, you know. So I love
Rampey.
These different yes.
I
love it.
She puts together the summits as well. She's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Light from Lantern,
it's so great
on Instagram. She's so worth following.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
And this is the season. This is the season to work on those shadows related to wealth, related to health, related to happiness and well-being. Like that's, to me, that's what being a witch is about. It's about deconstructing that status quo that tells us, oh, you're supposed to do this. And I think that's one of the things about wealth that really sticks, especially for women.
Yeah.
Because we're told, oh, being wealthy is selfish. You should just be happy that you have a roof over your head, clean water, and a bed to sleep in. No. Yes, we should. Okay, let me clarify that. I'm getting on my soapbox, ladies and gentlemen. But okay, so think about it. Yes, we should be grateful for the things we have, the essentials that we have. But that's not the bare minimum we should only be deserving to receive. Yeah. Look at nature. When nature produces a flower, it does not produce one seed from that flower. That flower will produce thousands of seeds. That's abundance. That's the abundance of nature. That's the lesson nature teaches us about abundance. Yeah. Go forth and propagate, right? I'm going to spread my seeds as far and wide as I can through birds, through wind, through other animals, through human activity, so that I can thrive. And that's what it's about.
It's not about survival. It's about thriving.
Thriving. We should be thriving. And so this whole season, like literally for me, going from Mabon to Samhain, that is like my shadow work deep dive season. Even though I do shadow work all year long, that is when I go into the deep stuff. So I spend this time from Lammas to about Mabon, the 6 weeks, that whole transition where the world is kind of starting to settle down. The season is coming to a close. It's harvest season. I start really reflecting on, okay, what are those big shadows that I'm still working on that haven't quite resolved themselves? I'm not making progress, or I made very little progress. So that's where I end up really digging into things like this, like prosperity magic, shadow work, which brings me to the next summit that I will be participating in with other witches. It's the Empowered Modern Witches Summit. It is September 23rd through the 27th, and that is with Tanae Stewart. She is hosting this one. And again, it's another great opportunity to hear from a bunch of different witches from a bunch of different paths. And this one specifically focuses on shadow work. So starting that shadow work season off right with a bunch of different perspectives and some really good clarity. And I am offering a class on that one that comes from my book, From the Witch's Shadow Work for Witches, where we start digging into that shadow work. And yeah, there's so much great stuff happening. I know you've got more happening too.
Yes. And we are getting down to the wire for the very first day of the Sacred Wild. The path of the Sacred Wild is what I teach. It's how I connect to land and the elements in intentional ways to live a life in connection. And that life in connection is what empowered me to hear the call from Greece. It's what empowered me to write and get 2 book contracts. It is what empowered me to connect with Leandra and start this podcast and start a million other things I do. It is the land. It is the grounding that comes from working with the land. I cannot overstate it. I don't think any of us can. The land is it. It is the support. And so the Sacred Wild membership is the opportunity to jump onto that path. If you feel the call of nature, if you really want to work with nature intentionally, if you know that the elements have wisdom for you and the whispers are still too quiet and you don't know how to tune into it the way you know you can, that is where I come in. That is where the mentorship that I'm providing in this is coming in. And it is where the community behind what we're doing is coming in. And we have quite a diverse array already signed up of people who work with all paths. So I really wanted to explain that on the podcast too. So many people are like, well, do I have to be a capital W witch to work with the path of the Sacred Wild? Absolutely not. In fact, I have Christo-pagans coming into this community. I have unaligned people who don't like labels at all coming into this community. That's probably the biggest group. And I also have people who are very open-minded to any labels that they need to have in order to just get to the root, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, of what magic with nature can be. So the first class for that is going to be September 1st, and you will get the course recording. So if you hear this after that and you're like, no, you can join. It's fine. But it is capped at 13 folks, and it is filling up. So I am talking to you out there. If you're the person who's like, I really want to work with you, Elise, like I really want to know you. I want to understand what the Sacred Wild can mean for me. I am asking you to reach out. I'm inviting you to personally. And that sounds hard to say on a podcast that's going to the millions. But no, when I meditate on the people I want to call in, I'm sending that light energy to you that taps you on the shoulder and says, it's time to reach out to Elise. And if you've been getting that tap on the shoulder from your spirit guides, it's me. It's me tapping you on the shoulder too. So please reach out and let's get you in this community. So it is 2 classes a month. It is my full course library, including 3 exclusive classes. And it is a monthly tarot reading. And then we also have a WhatsApp chat where we get to connect with each other and grow in community, because that's a really big part of what we do. And we'll get off our soapbox on community for the day. You're spared, but it is so important to this path. So I would love more than anything that if you're feeling the call of the Sacred Wild, that you answer it and you reach out and we can set up a call, get to know each other, see if it works for you. And we're starting September 1st, baby. It's coming.
Nice. That's excellent. Exciting. And what else is going on? Oh my gosh, I feel like there's so much going on. Like our listeners are like, I'm so overwhelmed, but I want to do it all. I know, please, like try and do it all, because as much as you can, at least. I know. So also in September, I have the Women's Circle certification program that's going to launch. And I'm currently accepting enrollment. So you can get that early bird pricing for the enrollment. It will go up as soon as that the certification program launches. But if you want to lead with confidence in your community and start leading your own women's circles, start building that community, that sense of partnership and having fun with other women in your area. And this is your opportunity. Really, it is so... I'm making it stupid easy right now for you to join us. So don't miss that opportunity. And you get to work with me. This one's going to be a self-paced course, but I will have a in-person option soon where we are going to meet at the Serpent's Key and we will do some of the workshop elements there so that you get firsthand, on-hand experience with leading the women's circles. So if that's something you're interested in, please check my link. All the links will be in the bio. So you can check us out, see what we have to offer, see what suits you. And I think that's the important thing, because we have so much. You're probably overwhelmed by all the things we offer. But this is what we do. Like, we offer free things so you can get in there and get your work done. And we have our paid things where you can go deeper and just get really deep into this practice, really take your journey to that next level. And that's what this is all about. And
I have one teensy weensy last thing. I almost forgot. I am now co-hosting a second podcast. And this podcast is called The Cosmic Theater Mystery Show. And for those of you who came to the Spirit Walk that I hosted in Haverty Grace, Maryland last year, it is with Megan Plummer, the lead investigator and medium for First Call Paranormal. She's is a paranormal. Awesome. Yeah, Leandra's friends with her too. Megan and I go back years and years and years, like before I was even a teacher. Like we literally have been friends like a long time. And like she went to my first live in-person rituals in Baltimore with me. Like literally she's like a real one, like from the old days. Like Leandra and me, like we go back to like the before 4 times.
Yeah, the before 4.
So it's just so special that she invited me to be on this project. And we're blending the paranormal investigation world, which has its patriarchal leans, with the spirit world, the ethical side of what we do as spirit workers in the craft, but also in the spiritual world in general. So we've got interviews lined up with demonologists and mediums of different backgrounds. And the first episode is out now, talking about why people are afraid of ghosts. And
nice.
I think episode 2 will be releasing tomorrow if you're listening to this on the day it releases. So it's every 2 weeks, just like this podcast, but it releases on Tuesdays. And I'm really excited to hear your feedback on that, because I came to Witchcraft in a more formal light. Like I was a broom closet witch until I started paranormal investigating. So it really has a soft spot in my heart. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work with the paranormal again and to bridge it with the witchy. And we will host our Spirit Walk again this year in October or November. So stay tuned for that if you are local-ish.
Awesome. I know. Yeah, Megan and I stood in my booth at the Holistic Expo for I think 2 hours, just talking about the paranormal and how important it is to incorporate the idea of land spirits and plant spirits and animal spirits. And sometimes, like, what we're seeing is not a ghost at all. And I loved it. I was like, yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're breaking a lot of rules and barriers, and I am so excited to get these conversations out there and for y'all to hear them.
Deborah Blake is the author of over a dozen books on modern witchcraft, including The Little Book of Cat Magic and Everyday Witchcraft, as well as the acclaimed Everyday Witch Tarot and Everyday Witch Oracle decks. She has also written 3 paranormal romance and urban fantasy series for Berkeley, and her new cozy mystery series launches with Forbidden Fatality in 2021. Deborah lives in a 130-year-old farmhouse in upstate New York with numerous cats who supervise all her activities, both magical and mundane. More info can be found at deborahblakeauthor.com. I love how much you love cats.
Yeah, same here.
Me
We're all
too.
cat lovers here.
No, I'm pretty much, I'm a, author, witch, crazy cat lady. You need a description of me and not necessarily in that order, I might add.
Honestly, yes. All of the above for me too.
All of the above, yes.
Yeah. We were talking about that a bit before we started recording, that in Greece here, I have 26 outdoor cats. And then we have at any given point between like 5 and 10 in different arrays of like, my mom has a cat rescue. So I'm always running up there at her house to like help her with things. And we have like, right now, as of recording this, we have 6 cats in their own balconies with their own everything, because they had different surgeries, or some of them are getting adopted to the US. So they're being prepared to travel, so they can't be outside. And it's always a fun time.
Well, see, that makes my 5 seem almost reasonable.
Oh yeah, 5 is very reasonable. If my husband wasn't allergic, like we only have 2 of our own, like, flesh and blood cats. You know what I mean? Like our babies. We only have 2 of those because he's allergic to cats. If he wasn't, it's a blessing that he is, because if he wasn't, we would definitely have like 20.
Yeah.
We just love them.
I only have two black kitties And
black is good. Three of my 5 are black.
Nice. And I always say that, like, if I'm ever reincarnated, I want to come back as a cat, either at Lisa's rescue or in my house, where I'm like totally taken care of. I get the nice warm window seat and
The
all
good
the
food, not
good
any of that
food.
cheap crap. No,
Nope, the good food. Yes.
Get to sleep on the bed.
Yes.
Yeah, no, my cats definitely have the life. There's no question. Every once in a while, they're forced to go to the vet, and there's great indignation over that. Other than that, it's a pretty good life.
Yeah, the most torture my cats ever get is too much snuggling, too many kisses,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
all that good stuff.
Yeah. Waking them up from their hours and hours of sleep to pet them.
Being forcibly removed from the countertop 6 times in 2 minutes. Yep, that's pretty much
yes. Oh, that's torture.
Yeah, that's just one cat. That's Diana, who is, both one of the cutest cats in the world and one of the most evil and stubborn cats in the world. I have one of those
too. Her name's Molly.
Yeah. No, they seem so innocent as kittens, and then it turns out, no, you spend the whole rest of your life going, get down from there. Stop that. Stop torturing that.
What are you doing?
Yeah. No.
Why are you up there?
Oh yeah. No, I had a housemate for a while at the beginning of the pandemic, and Diana was actually named after Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, because she almost died as a kitten, and she, fought for her life.
Wow.
And she looked like this tiny little, like, innocent tiger cat. Turned out she was like a warrior princess. Nice. So her whole name is apparently Warrior Princess Diana Banana Monkey Get Down. Because all you hear all day long is monkey, get down. Yeah. Nope. So that's that. She will answer to that just as well as to Diana, because
I like it.
That's her whole name.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Actually, this was not a question I planned to ask, but do you see any of your cats as your familiar?
In this bunch, my last batch, I did have my cat named Magic. You got to be careful what you name them. My cat Magic, who would like feature in many of my Llewellyn books. There'd be advice from Magic, and the Little Book of Cat Magic was all about her. And I lost her 6 years ago. She was a true familiar. She really, if I was doing magic, she was right there when my circle would gather. When we had to be inside, which in upstate New York is not unusual, snow, rain, mosquitoes, whatever. We had a round table that we used as an altar, and she would come in, she would stroll around the table, she would greet everyone, and then she would either sit under the table or behind me, on the couch and supervise. And when she hopped down and went around the table again and walked out of the room, we're like, well, okay, the ritual's over now.
That's great.
Yeah. So she really was a familiar. But the rest of the current guys, I have one that sometimes helps. I do energy healing work, and she seems to be tuned into that some of the time. But no familiars, just cats that if you leave everything out, we'll throw it on the floor, which is less helpful than they think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't need that. There it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my cats aren't really. Willie definitely is not the one who is sitting next to me now. He's a little simple. He was adopted because he chose us, as many of them do. He was hit by a car as a kitten, and he showed up with a dead eye. So when we took him in for the surgery to remove the eye, we also found out that all of his bones healed in like the wrong sort of place. And he also is a bit mentally disabled from the incident. So he's just a simple boy, which actually, I think it's been a blessing, honestly, for him, because he doesn't remember his life out there. Like, he really doesn't.
He's not traumatized.
Yeah, which is such a blessing. Like, he really lives his best life now. And our cat hates cats. Like Emma, our first cat, Like if she knew she was a cat, she would be irate about it. Like she hates cats. Like if she sees a cat through the window, like she gets so angry. But with him, like I swear she like knew, she could tell his energy was simpler and gentler, and they really get along. Like they play, but they really don't attack each other. Like she's so good with him. And it's really the only way we could have ever had a second cat. So it's kind of beautiful.
Cool. Hey, those things work out the way they're supposed to.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And she's an intuitive girl. Like she's a very, like most cats, I guess, like she likes what she likes and doesn't like what she doesn't like, but she does love magic. Like if I'm meditating, even just to like calm my mind, not even like a deep trance, and she is right there. She's got to be involved. Like I always say like she begrudgingly heals energy as well. Like she'll like, she can tell you're off and she's like, oh, you are cramping the vibe in here. Let me take care of that. You know, it's not that she wants to help you, it's that she's tired of the vibe being off.
That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Like if I have cramps or something, she'll come over and lay right on my stomach to heal them. But I swear it's just because she doesn't want her energy out of whack.
Right. Right.
You're harsh and her mellow.
That makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, I think familiars do have to have that like level of, I don't want to say importance, but like they have to be on the wavelength.
Oh,
Diana sort of intuitive thing there.
Magic was queen of the house. You know, in fact, her whole title, and she would prefer that you use it, was Magic the Cat, Queen of the Universe. You know, and she really was. You know, she knew what the rules were, like, you know, the whole not getting on the counter thing. She would jump right up next to me when I was doing something in the kitchen, and I would look at her and I'd go, you know, I'm right here. And she would just give me that look like, yeah, and your point? You know, and she would sit on my lap while I was eating and wait for me to give her something or drop it on my lap. She would sit right behind me. You know, if I was writing on the couch, she would sit right next to the keyboard. If I was writing at the desktop, she slept by my head. You know, she literally supervised eating, sleeping, writing, everything I did. When I lost her, I was like, well, crap, I don't know how to do any of this stuff without supervision. So, you know, that was very difficult. But luckily I got more cats and, you know, they supervised me too. So they just, it takes all 5 of them to basically fill up the space that she and her brother, who I lost 8 days after I lost her, he was like this gigantic gray, she was black, of course. And, you know, he was this gigantic gray, big, I mean, he was a very sweet cat, thank goodness, because he was humongous. I mean, his shoulders were like 2 inches higher than everybody else's. And, you know, he was just a big mush, although he did pick on the girl cat some. It was like, but with people, he was wonderful. He'd follow you around like a dog. So, yeah, are we going to talk about cats the whole time? Because we could.
Well, we really could.
Yeah.
I haven't told you about my kitties yet. No.
Yeah. Okay, tell us about your kitty.
No, we should probably get to the book.
Yeah. No, I just had to ask that about familiars because I feel like it's a topic we skirt around so much in the craft because like some people are really like, this is the only way a cat or an animal can be a familiar. And then others are like, every pet you have the familiar. And it's like somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah. A few years ago, I put out the little book of cat magic, which was not part of this little book of series. It was just the little book of cat magic. And I talk about familiars in it because people have questions about that a lot. They're like, how do you know? Can you purposely get a familiar? I'm like, no, you can't. You can purposely get a cat that you connect with and see if that cat's a familiar. But if they're not, you don't get to take them back and go, this one's not magical. Can you find me a magical one? I was like, this one's broken.
Yeah, definitely.
We read a lot of great books for the Magic Kitchen podcast, and Leandra and I thought it was high time to invite you to read along with us. Join Leandra and I in the Wheel of the Year book club, where every 6 weeks we meet to discuss a book together. The first meeting will be around Samhain. Join by joining the Magic Kitchen Pantry, either through the Rebel Mystic community or through patreon.com/Elise Wells at the Dedicate or Initiate tiers. We cannot wait to read with you.
Well, speaking of little books, like this little book of witchcraft is jam-packed. Like I keep flipping through it and finding new things that I thought I read, and I'm like, wait, did I read that?
It was an interesting challenge to write. First of all, it's part of Llewellyn has this series, Llewellyn's little book of fill in the blank here.
Yeah.
And they've got some really cool ones, Little Book of Moon Magic, the Little Book of Herbs, Little Book of Tarot. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to my editor, Alicia, there, at this point a few years ago, because it takes a couple of years to go through the whole process. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to write next, because obviously I've written a bunch of books and I'm starting to run out of stuff to talk about. It's like I've written about cats, I've written about brooms, I've written about, integrating your witchcraft with your everyday life a couple times, because that's my everyday witch kind of theme thing. And she said, well, we've got this series, and, you haven't written any of those yet. And I said, well, what's still available? What one? And she said, well, nobody's written the Little Book of Witchcraft. And I went, dibs. Because, I am very much sort of a general practitioner when it comes to witchcraft. I am not a specialist in, say, herbs or kitchen witchery, although I do both of those things. I have a huge garden. I do garden magic. I do kitchen magic. But my approach, when you look at most of my books, except the ones that are specialized, like the Little Book of Cat Magic or the book about brooms, is basically to sort of look at the big picture and then figure out how you can use all of that stuff in your day-to-day life. Because, let's face it, most of us don't have an hour every day to practice ritual. We may not have an hour every month to practice ritual or do whatever it is we're going to do. So I try and make it simple for people to figure out, like, the great thing about the way these books are arranged is they've got a list of activities in the front, and then there's a list of spells and a list of tips. So you can either flip through the book, or you can say, okay, I need a spell for, something to make me feel better. Oh, look, calming and grounding. I could do that one. That would be good. And yeah, when I was working on this book, I was trying to sort of juggle both having something that would have everything a beginner would need to know in a tiny little book, I might add, although it's
indeed
cute hardcover.
It's very cute. Yeah.
But also I wanted it to be something that folks who'd been practicing for a while would still find useful. The spells are still useful. The activities are still useful. Yes, they probably don't need the part that talks about the holidays. They probably know how to celebrate Beltane. But, hopefully the rest of the book, has things that maybe they either haven't looked at it that way, or, they haven't come across me suggesting how to do that particular thing yet.
Right.
I talk about things like, in the chapter on spells, when spells don't work. It's like people always, ask me, well, why didn't my spell work? And, there's a lot of answers to that. The answer is, well, it depends. What did the cat do? No, that's, but yeah, I try to address a lot of the basic kind of things. And hopefully it's helpful and useful. It was tricky to put everything I wanted to cover, at least briefly, inside this cute little book.
Yeah. And you have a good way of getting to the point in the book too. Going back to the everyday practice, you have an entire chapter 6, daily practices, go over some, basic things you can do every day. And I like what you said in the beginning about, witchcraft isn't just about holidays and full moons. Like it's much deeper than that. And
Yeah, I
it
mean,
is an everyday thing.
Don't get me wrong. I love the holidays and I love the full moons. My group, Blue Moon Circle is a coven that I founded in 2004, if you can believe it. And we're still together, which is, nothing short of a miracle in witchcraft.
Yeah, that is impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, I just wrote a book called The Everyday Witch's Coven because I wanted to address how you do that. And so that people can run out and buy that one too if they have any interest in being in a coven, starting a coven. Everyday Witches Coven. There you go. It's all in there for you. But I love celebrating the holidays with my people. And the full moons is usually when I do magical work on my own. Although these days, if I'm really tired, my magical work may consist of going out, looking at the moon, saying, "Hello, lady," and thank you very much for everything, and then going back in the house, lighting a candle, and sitting down and eating a piece of chocolate. My practice is not complicated, but that's one of the things that I try and do in my books, and in this book in particular. I want it to be simple and easy and uncomplicated because most of us have not simple, easy, or uncomplicated lives. Most of us are busy and stressed and torn in 10 different directions at once. And that's not even counting taking care of the cats. So when you're making space for your magical work, it's nice if you can take 5 minutes here and do something simple and 10 minutes there and do something simple. Yes, every once in a while, if you have a major need, for instance, you may want to pull out all the stops and do the whole ritual and, call the quarters and, invoke the god and goddess and do all of this, big stuff, cleanse the space. But most of my practice is more about walking my talk day to day than it is about ritual.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what's hard for the newbies, the ones coming right in, right fresh. They see the glittery spells online usually these days, or they see it maybe even in fiction, like the movies and TV shows and things that we love, but they're not maybe possible, like Charmed. We love it, but not
right.
real.
Charmed, Harry Potter.
Yeah. And I think people think, okay, well, yeah, it's not going to look just like that, but I can do magic and I can. But realistically, I feel like I'm doing magic both every day in small ways, but the big magic probably fairly infrequently. I do a full moon ritual, but I'm not always asking for something. Most of the time, it's just gratitude exercises or meditation, like communion. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very rarely for me all right, I need this.
Right. I may, if I have a spell that I want to do, I may wait and do it on the full moon just to get that little extra bit of oomph.
Oh, yeah.
But
the push, yeah.
I don't need that every month. And I think, I've been practicing now for years, a while. I came to it in my, I think, mid 30s, sort of a late bloomer, and I'm now, 64 by the time this airs. So I've been doing it for a while. And yes, in the beginning, it was all about the spells, which are great, and it was all about, what magic I could do. And now it's mostly, okay, I'm making dinner anyway, and I haven't been feeling great. So I'm going to throw a couple of extra healing herbs into my soup, and I'm going to focus on my intention of adding healing to this soup so that as it comes into my body, that power will come into me. And it's more about intention than it is. I don't say a spell. I may stir the pot 9 times clockwise to add, again, that little extra bit of magic. But it's really simple stuff. I do spell work. It's not that I don't, but it's when I think about being a witch, for me, it's more of a spiritual path and a way of life. When I compost and recycle, that's being a witch, because the earth is important to me.
Yeah.
It really can be that simple, on top of the things like the spells and the cool crafty activities and the rest of it.
And I think along that line, I think a lot of new witches and even some, experienced, like sometimes we get in that rut, like where we have to ask permission to do our magic, where the permission is given to us through the full moon, or we can only do it because of this circumstance.
You can only do money magic on a Thursday.
Right. Or at a new
while
moon.
Wearing green underwear or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And don't forget the green eyeliner or whatever it is, like we have to have that permission to practice when we really don't. We just need to get in there and just do it.
Right. And one of the things that I, tell people, like when I put spells in books, I often say, this might be the optimum time or the optimum day or, holiday or whatever. And here are some tools that you can use. These are the herbs that I might do with, this is the stone I might do. But I also always add that stuff is optional. If you need to do prosperity work on a Thursday during, the waning moon instead of the waxing moon when you might normally do it, then just figure out a way to make your spell fit that time. Maybe use a spell to get rid of debt instead of using a spell to bring in more money, or just do the spell you want and hope for the best. The rules are, other than the big ones like harm none, which I am a big believer in, and, respecting other people's, personal rights,
autonomy,
free will. I am, and again, this is not universal with witches. Some witches do not necessarily follow those tenets, that's their choice. Everybody has to make their own decisions as far as that's concerned. For me, I try not to do any spells that would have a negative effect on anybody. And I try not to do anything that would interfere with anybody else's free will. Like I might do a healing spell for somebody, but I would ask their permission first. And if they said no, then I wouldn't do it. It's other than that, the rules are more like guidelines. It's like, yes, it might give you a little bit more of an oomph to do this particular spell on this particular day in this particular phase of the moon. But that doesn't mean you can't do it at another time or in another way. I'm a big advocate of listening to your own inner voice, your own inner wisdom. So if I have a spell in my book and it tells you to use, say, parsley and rosemary, and you think, those don't really seem right to me, I think I want to use lavender. Well, use lavender. This is your witchcraft. My stuff starts you out. It gives you a jumping off point, but it's not law.
Hey there, witches. Did you know that there's an entire community out there dedicated to you and your journey? The Rebel Mystic community is a space where I offer my decades of knowledge and experience to witches just like you. I do this through live events, monthly mentoring, monthly rituals, a book club, and other resources like workbook pages and meditations. There is even a complete self-paced course library you can access. Check the link in the show notes to learn more about this community and how to become a member. Blessed be.
Yeah, and actually, to go back to what you said about the healing spell, like magical consent is something we talk about on the show a lot because people don't often, I think it comes from two places. People don't often consider magical consent in the smaller ways, like a healing spell. Like I know they would, I like to think that most people, especially our listeners, shout out to our listeners because they're very like we just have a very like
we
kind
really
listener
awesome
base.
listeners.
Yeah. But like, all of our listeners, to be honest, I'm sure would not do like a love spell on a stranger or something horrible like that. But we don't often think of like healing. Like maybe that person doesn't want to be healed. I think you share a story in here, I think, is that right? About like somebody's terminally ill and they actually don't want to be healed. They want to like move on. That might be the case.
Or, as somebody who has dealt with chronic illness since I was much younger, sometimes people need to learn lessons that the illness will teach them. And if you heal them before they're ready to be healed, you may be depriving them of whatever that lesson is. That doesn't, it seems like, oh, that would still be doing them a favor. It isn't always. And there are people who need to be sick for some reason or another. It is something that, and believe me, again, as somebody who's, been dealing with stuff for my whole life, I'm not doing it for attention. I'm not, making it up. I'm not saying that, but, people manifest what they manifest sometimes out of a need to do it. Not, most of us who are sick are like, oh, hell no, give me a pill, make it go away. Thank you very much. But you just don't know. And it is not up to us unless somebody asks you. If somebody says, yes, go ahead and do a spell or pray for me or whatever. When my brother-in-law, who I adore, has been dealing with cancer for the last couple of years, and he basically said, I will take all prayers. I don't, all good intentions. I don't care. He's not a witch. We do not have the same practices, but he knows that whatever I'm putting out into the universe for him is coming from a good place, whatever that place is. But I would not have done it without his permission, So, even that, the whole idea of praying for people, you think, well, that's a wonderful thing to do. Let's face it, there are people out there, not the folks listening to your podcast, but people out there who would not want a witch to pray to a goddess for them, no matter what. And you need to respect that. There are some people I maybe wouldn't want to be praying for me because it depends, are they praying for me to feel better or are they praying for me to live a life that they consider appropriate? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that, let's call it what it is. Like it's a more Christian thing, like, right? Like it's that Christian approach of like, that. Yeah, I know. But like it is, it's unfortunately like, I get that a lot actually from my in-laws. They are often will pray for your safety, which what they mean is don't travel to that country. Leaving America is dangerous. Like it's not a genuine offer to pray. Right. And it's also, they're not asking. They will pray because they want to manifest change in your life. Or
when they say they're going to pray for your soul, what they mean is they're going to pray for you to stop being a witch and start doing things their way. And I'm like, well, go for it. It hasn't worked yet, but last time I checked. But yeah, I do think it is really important to respect other people's free will. And also, again, if you only have 5 minutes in a day to do magical work, you probably should mostly be focusing on yourself. Unless somebody specifically asks you for help, which is a whole different thing. And I do get that sometimes, but, for the most part, magic is a very personal path. Even if you practice with other people, it is still a very personal path. And that's one of the things I love about it. You get to make it your own. You get to, my magical path is not going to look like yours. It's not going to look like yours. And that's fine.
Yep. That's the beauty of it. And actually, I think that's something to be said about those 5 minutes that we find a day. It doesn't have to be with in the spirit world. We don't have to even commune with deity if that's our 5 minutes. Maybe that's the time that you take to go over some herbs that you've been trying to learn more about, or that's the time you take to read some of that witchy book that you're trying to get through, or
pull a tarot card and try and figure out what the heck's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think and also, I just thought of this too. I think there's a lot of pressure from people to put together morning routines. Like, I'm going to be a witch, so I need to start my day in this way. And it's like, I actually do think, and I say this now because I've been kind of doing this for a couple months without meaning to. I'm not a morning person. I'm sure many people aren't. Not everyone is. And when I try to force myself to get up and do something right away, it doesn't go well. Like, I won't enjoy it, and maybe I'll even resent the practice. So for the past couple of months, I start with coffee. That's how I'm sure many folks do. And actually with that coffee is when I do a little bit of magic. Like I pull my card for the day. I always stir some intentions into my coffee or stirring counterclockwise to remove anything I'm anxious about that day. Whatever, I stir my coffee intentionally, and then I pull my card for the day. And that's it. That's my whole morning practice. But throughout the day, I've built in, like, at my lunch break, I do something. Like, I watch a lecture from a practitioner that I support, or I look for a book that I'm reading. Like, lately I've been on JSTOR, literally, like, finding articles that, anyway, it doesn't matter what you do, but like I find that if I break up my daily practice in that way, I do more, because I don't feel pressured to. But I'm on my lunch, I'm eating my lunch. What am I going to do? Well, may as well develop my skill. I don't do rituals on my lunch break, but I do read witchcraft things or, study something.
And it's funny how opposite I am from Elise, because I am a morning person.
I was thinking about that.
So she harasses me all the time. She's like, you're up early. You're up early. I'm like, yeah, I am.
Oh, no, it's not harassment. It's respect. I'm like, how are you even alive?
How are you alive at 5 a.m.? No, I'm alive. I am alive at 5 a.m. Yeah.
That's like bedtime for me.
So she's like, hey, you're up early.
Like, we're 7 hours apart on our time difference, but we are on the same schedule. That is
wow.
It's wow. Yeah. It's crazy.
That's wild.
Crazy.
But for my morning practice, I do a lot more. Like I'm ready to go when I'm up. So I, get the coffee, I do the stretching, the yoga. If I have time, I'm walking or, meal prepping, whatever I have to do. So that is my optimum time to do rituals. So I set things up on my altar and I get it going, and I let it, if it's a longer spell for the day, then it goes, most of the day. Cause I set it up here in my office. So I'm with it and I don't have to, but yeah. So I'm the opposite of Elise. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do this. But I also break things up too. So I have like my morning rituals and then I have my evening rituals. So it's very interesting. Like, that's what I love about this path, is that we can do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah. Well, I hit a point where I was trying really hard to establish, my own daily, practice. And, one of the things that I wanted to do was every night, before bed, I wanted to, light a candle on the altar in the bedroom, because of course I have one in the living room, one in the bedroom, many altars
everywhere.
But they all have different purposes. The one in the bedroom is actually now dedicated to the ashes of my dead cats. But what I wanted to do was, light a candle and, commune with the gods. And every night I would be so tired, I'd be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I just can't. And in the morning, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do, the things. And, the first thing I have to do, of course, is feed the cats. And I kid you not, 5 cats who eat 3 different foods in 5 different rooms. So it's this whole process. And yes, I'm also doing my stretches and a little bit of yoga and trying to check, did this cat finish their food yet? And so what I ended up doing was realizing that I was overthinking and trying to do more than I was capable of doing, because I am tired. It's part of, I have fibromyalgia, so I'm always tired no matter what. So what I do now is in the morning, literally before I even get out of bed, as soon as I'm awake, as the cats are all starting to sort of nudge me to get out of bed, I greet the gods and, say, greet you on, the start of another day. please, send me, help for whatever this is, send me prosperity, watch over me and the people I love. That's when I do my prayers for, anybody who's on my sadly extensive list of people who need, the prayers. And, then I get up and get on with my day. And at night, after I get into bed, turn off the light, but before I fall asleep, then I say thank you. I say, okay, God and Goddess, I greet you at the end of another day and thank you for the many blessings in my life. And then I, list some general things like, home and health and cats and some specific things from that day, usually like the people, like I'll be mentioning you guys, thank you for, helping me be semi-coherent, and, surviving the plumber later, hopefully. Actually I'll be saying thanks for having a good plumber, and the money to pay him, more or less. And for all the people who go out and buy my books so I can play the plumber. But that's, when I was trying to force myself to do something formal, I failed every time because it just didn't work for me. Whereas I've been doing this particular practice for years and it does work for me. And it's still spiritual. It's still a little bit of ritual. It's just only 5 minutes of lying in my bed talking to the gods.
Yep.
That's all
well, and I think that's it. Yeah. Like we as practitioners, like we just put a lot of pressure on like what we label as practicing, you know, like, does it count that I stirred my coffee? Yes, it does. If you had intention and you're stirring clockwise and you're saying, Goddess, bring me this today. Help me bring this for myself today. Help me, going anti-clockwise. Help me not succumb to these anxieties about this and this. Like, it's so meaningful. It's so meaningful. So why would it not count?
And that's one of the reasons when I write a book, and obviously, I've done this a couple times now. I always say in my books, if this doesn't work for you, do it a different way. And people probably get tired, of that. But, I think we all need to be reminded sometimes that there is no one right way. This is one of the things that I love about a witchcraft practice is it doesn't have to be, like some of the other religions where there are very specific right and wrong ways of doing things. And, not that everybody follows those, but nonetheless, there are a bunch of rules usually. We don't got a lot of rules. We basically got, whichever God talks to you, you can talk back to that one, or you can talk to a bunch of them, or you can just talk to this one, or you can talk to the universe. That's cool too, whatever works for you. And you can do it with your morning coffee, or when you go to bed at night, or with your lunch, or, when the weather is nice, which in upstate New York is not at this time of year, but in the warmer months of the year, I try and take a walk every day. And I live in a fairly rural area. So you see birds, you see trees, there's a creek across the street from me that I can see at some parts of my walk. And I just try and be mindful and appreciative of nature. And for me, that's part of my practice because I feel very connected with, witchcraft for me is very much a connection with nature as well as deity. I mean, deity is nature.
Yes,
definitely.
So,
you're in my territory now. I gotta peel it back because my practice is based on land spirit work. So everything I do, it starts at the land and then fleshes itself out from there. And I always say this because I don't know, hopefully I'm wrong, but I feel like land spirits don't get their due in most people's practice because they're faceless, they're largely nameless. There's very few places that have a named land spirit that's known for this name and this quality. And, in Greece, we do actually have those, but look in the US where I lived, like absolutely not. The natives might have had names for them, but sadly those names have been lost. But that doesn't mean they're not powerful. Or they're not allies. Like I always. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is fair enough.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't mean like if you live in.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually follow somebody
but it's
on
so
Instagram.
meaningful to reach out to them.
Yeah. So somebody on Instagram, a Native American, indigenous person, whatever the appropriate term is, actually is sharing like the words for like snow and rain and all these other things. And it's so fascinating to me. I just love it. I am fascinated by the way other people practice, even if that's not how I do it. You're talking about the land spirits. My whole property, it's not a big, I live in a little farmhouse on like an acre of land, most of which is either the house or the barn or the garden, and some trees and things. But when we practice outside, we always, if we have cakes and ale, we leave an offering. We pour out a little bit of whatever our drink is, and we leave a little bit of the cookies or whatever, just for whatever, the land spirits, the whatever entities are out there. And we do try and acknowledge that they're there. And my whole property at this point is sacred space, because we've been doing magic here since, let's see, I bought the house in 2021. So we've been doing magical work here for so long that there is not one little tiny piece of my property that is not sacred space. Which is wonderful.
Yeah. And actually, I think that's part of the power of creating sacred space that we don't often think about. Like, my business is Seeking Numina. Like, on Instagram, I'm Seeking Numina. And Numina means sacred places. And
that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah,
look, I learned something.
I know. Nobody knows, but it's like the only word for that. It's a Latin word. Like, in English, we don't have a word for sacred places, So anyway, like, I started it thinking, okay, I'm going to travel to the sacred places, capital SP, but then as I'm doing
like
so, I'm realizing like,
sure.
Yeah, exactly. But really, like, a sacred place can be your backyard, because you're hosting ritual there continually. You're writing books, these incredible books in this space. Like, your home could be in 50 years, could be a pilgrimage site for witches and pagans, that's not out of the realm of possibility. And that egregore is just going to grow and grow and grow. Like, I think about that all the time with like Doreen Valiente's apartment. Like, who lives in it? Why don't I have it? Like, I think about these things all the time. Like, sacred places are created, not found all the time.
For me, I have this, ironically, living in a landlocked place, I have this major connection with ocean. I find spirit very easy to access at the ocean. When I visit California, I usually try and go out once a year, and I have a really good friend who's also a writer and a witch, who comes and stays with me for a few days, gives me a break from my parents. And we stay near the ocean, and we will do magic and ritual down there. And sometimes, like, just walking up and down at the shoreline, it's like I can feel goddess so strongly there. And it's not a particular beach. I mean, I have my favorite, but it's just, for me, somehow she's more accessible where the land meets the water. And I don't know why that is, but it's also sometimes true just around
that liminal space. Oh yeah.
Liminal space is a thing. I mean, it's
absolutely
like, how you get those foggy days sometimes where you can't quite tell where the land and the air end. You can feel that. I mean, you can, if you are paying attention, and I think a lot of witchcraft is about paying attention. You're paying attention to things that the average mundane does not. To them, they're like, oh, it's foggy, I can't see what I'm driving. To a witch, it's like, oh, it's foggy, I wonder what's in that fog. I can feel some spirits coming a little bit closer than maybe they do when it's not foggy. So I think awareness is a huge part of a witchcraft practice. Awareness of yourself, awareness of deity, awareness of nature, but also just, all of those, like the sacred space and the power of the land, the power of the air, all of those things, which are all around us all the time. But until you become a witch or realize you're a witch, you may not be paying that much attention.
Well, and I always say, like, witchcraft is 90% acknowledgement. You know, like if you're open to the fact that it could happen and then you see something did happen and you say, yep, that happened. It's only 10. You're almost there.
Yep.
You just have to close that 10% gap with some magic, some intention. The rest is already there.
I think that's true. I think, you know, a lot of the power of a witchcraft practice, although spells are useful for tapping into the things around us. I mean, that's why we use herbs and stones, because we can tap into the energy that's already in them. But you can only do that if you can tap into your own energy. And, you know, when people say, well, how do I do that? You know, I tell them practice. You know, that's why it's called a witchcraft practice, is the more you do it, the better you get at it. Just like, you know, playing a musical instrument, or I don't know, math, which I never did get all that much better at math, but I don't practice much either. But yeah, you know, if you want to become a stronger, more sort of well-rounded witch, besides reading my books, obviously, which is a good place to start, practice. Yes, do some spells, but also sit on the ground under a tree. You know, there are two completely acceptable ways to practice.
Totally agree with that. And I think that's something that I don't know, it seems to be washed over in our, you know, social media culture and instant gratification cultures. Everybody wants that, like that instant download. Like, I have to know it all right now. I have to be proficient right away. I need everything. Give it all to me, and give it all to me immediately, and just spoon feed it to me, instead of this idea that it comes to us through practice. It comes to us through repetition, through tuning in, through finding ways to just sit and be still with the energy, with the messages, and with the practice.
Do you hear the call of working more deeply with nature and land spirits, but you're just not sure how to answer? Are you tired of feeling stagnant, overwhelmed, and unconfident in your magic? If you are ready to learn exactly how to listen to the land, if you are committed to making great strides in your spiritual practice, I invite you to embrace the sacred wild with me. I am currently taking students for the Path of the Sacred Wild, a new community space where you will connect with other practitioners and get direct guidance from me in 2 monthly classes, an exclusive group chat, and my full course library. This is limited to only 13 spots, and they are filling up fast. Email me or DM me on Instagram with any questions or to set up a free guidance call. I am waiting to work with you.
And let the downloads process, because if you want them again and again and again, I mean, I remember during my initiation process, maybe like 3 to 6 months in, somewhere in there, I got this download. I never used that word, but like, yeah, this message, this line. I always think of it as like a line, because that's kind of how it comes in. It's like a telegram or something. I don't know. And so I got this sentence, and I worked with that sentence for a year. And then that sentence grew into like 10 sort of guiding principles that through my initiation, like formed the basis of my practice. And everything I've done since then has kind of been built on that single quote unquote download that I got. Cool. Yeah. Oh, it's
cool.
Yeah. I don't talk about it like in detail with people, but like, it's that thing that when it happens, it's so meaningful, so powerful, but so simple. And then it just grows and grows and grows. And
how many times does that go overlooked? Like, I know other people get it. I know I've done it, where you get these downloads, you get these messages, these single lines that build later in your practice, but you forget or you dismiss it.
And that's part of my problem is I do forget. I have brain fog issues. Yeah, hey, that's really useful for writing, I got to tell you. But I get something and I know it's important, And one of the things that I've had to learn to do is write it down, because the next day I will be sitting there going, crap, what was that important message? There was I don't know. And then I have to not only write it down, but I have to put it someplace where I'm going to see it. And it isn't going to get buried by all the other pieces of paper where I write things down. I have a whiteboard that I use for my writing. And sometimes I put things there. And I used to do focus boards. I haven't done them in a number of years, but my group used to start the year by doing focus boards with like our goals for the year, because you could look at it and go, okay, this is a visual reminder of the stuff that I wanted to work on. And yes, sometimes you'd get halfway through the year and go, nope, turns out that wasn't the thing. There's another thing. You got to be flexible. Witchcraft is also all about being flexible. But, I do think it's important to be paying attention to those messages, because the gods will only send them a few times. If you do not listen, after a while, they're just going to go, fine, I'm going to go talk to Bob. Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny. And maybe you experience this as a writer as well. As a writer, I experience this too. I see ideas as this way, ideas and spirit messages kind of behave the same way, where like, if I get an idea, I don't think it comes from within. I think it comes from without. And it's ardent. It's urgent. It's like, you need to do this now. And if I don't move on it in the appropriate amount of time, which can vary depending on what it is. If it's a poem, it's like 6 hours. If it's a book, I got some time. But if I don't move on it, I have a strong feeling that it will move on and go to someone else. My
first book came to me that way. I've always wanted to write, but I intended to be a fiction writer, which, I am too, but I had never thought of writing nonfiction. And then my first book, Circle, Coven, and Grove, A Year of Magical Practice, which was based on the first year of practice with my own group, literally came to me in the shower, where all the best ideas show up, and you have no
They really do.
And it was one of those things that, it hit me so hard. Initially my first reaction was like, that can't be right. And then I went, no, that I'm feeling it. This is not from inside me. This is a message from the gods going, you need to write this book. And so, I wrote it, and I actually wrote it pretty fast, and sent it to Llewellyn, and the rest is history. But if I had listened to that little voice of doubt that went, oh, why would you think you could write a witchcraft book? You're not an expert. You're not Christopher Penczak. I think, that's one of the things that you have to do is ignore that little voice that goes, oh, I don't know, and pay attention to the big voice that says, yes, this is a message. If it turns out it's not, it's okay. So you've spent a little time and energy focusing on something that maybe wasn't as important as you thought it was. But if you miss it.
But it might lead to something bigger too.
Yep. It is very hard to predict the gods. So paying attention, extremely important.
Are you enjoying the show? If you are, we'd really appreciate a 5-star review. It helps us to reach more listeners like you and to keep doing the Magic Kitchen podcast. Thank you.
Well, I guess on that note, tell us about your books that are coming out in 2024, because I feel like as of recording, we didn't get them yet, which is so sad. So we didn't get to read them in time. But tell everybody about your new books coming out, and I think you have an Oracle deck as well this year.
I do. I'm so excited about the Oracle deck. So I don't know if your listeners know that I have my own tarot deck, which makes me all shiny. So I've got the Everyday Witch Tarot and the Everyday Witch Oracle, both of which I did with illustrator Elizabeth Alba, who is fabulous and amazing and a joy to work with. And So we are doing a second oracle, which as of the time of this coming out, it's coming out in May of 2024. So it'll be out already. And that is the Everyday Witches Familiars Oracle. And it's all animals. People are like, is it all cats? I'm like, no, there's a cat, but there's sort of, household animals like dog, bird, there's wild animals. And it's divided into earth, air, fire, and water the way our other oracle is, except now we also have a smaller section for spirit. So we have 4 sort of mystical animals. We've got the dragon and the unicorn. And her artwork, as usual, is stunning. I mean, just gorgeous. And this deck is, I mean, I don't want to brag on myself, but I think people are going to really like it. So I can't wait for that to be in people's hands. In March, I have the companion book for the Eclectic Witches Book of Shadows, which came out a couple of years ago. And the Eclectic Witches Book of Shadows is this beautiful hardcover. It was my first hardcover. And we made it so that people could write in it and add their own things and make it their own. And apparently it was too beautiful because everybody kept saying, no, I can't write in the book. I can't write in the book. It's too pretty. So we got a companion book that is a paperback, and it's got additional information. It goes with the original book, but you can use it on its own. It's got fun activities. It's got coloring pages. Mickey Mueller did the illustrations for that. She did the illustrations for the original book too. And again, I'm so fortunate with the people I get to work with. So that's March. Also in March, Crossed Crow Books is re-releasing one of my earlier Llewellyn books, which has been out of print. And that's Witchcraft on a Shoestring, which is all about how to practice. Can't talk anymore. Apparently we ran out of my verbal ability. So that is all about how to practice witchcraft without spending a lot of money. Because let's face it, not all of us, can invest in 10,000 crystals. I only have probably 1,000. I have a lot of crystals. I have a small crystal. I have a small crystal problem. But I'm in therapy for that. We're not getting anywhere. So that's also coming out in March. And then there's the Oracle deck in May. And then I can't even remember, August or September is the follow-up to this book. Well, not follow-up, completely separate book. Llewellyn's Little Book of Spellcraft, which will basically be another one in the same series. Because one of the things that I am good at, one of the things that, maybe not all witches feel as comfortable with as I do, is writing spells and creating spells. And so, yes, there's the Llewellyn's Little Book of Spellcraft. Will give you a bunch of spells, but it also will help you figure out how to create them for yourself. And that's going to be fun too. So yeah, I have a busy 2024.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
It's going to be all book promotion all the time. Yay.
Yeah. Oh, so the dream though. That's awesome.
Yeah. Buy my book, buy my book. There, I'm done.
And do you have a place where on your website can people buy books directly from you?
I have an Etsy shop. There's a link on my website, which is the very imaginative DeborahBlakeAuthor.com. So as long as you can spell,
and that'll be in the show notes.
Yes, DEBORAH, the long biblical way. DeborahBlakeAuthor.com. I have links to all of my online, like I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm still trying to learn how to use TikTok. I don't know if we added the link to that. I'll have to check. But I've got an Etsy shop where, yes, people can get signed books. And I have a few little magical kits and some of the gemstone jewelry I make, things like that. So there's a link to that. I've got a Patreon, so they can come, follow me on Patreon if they want to and contribute to my cats being able to eat. Always a good thing. And yeah, so yeah, that's probably the best place to find all the things. My Llewellyn books, you can get them directly from Llewellyn, or of course, they're always available, anywhere online. Or you could go to your local indie bookshop if you are lucky enough to have one, and ask them to special order a book, and they will always do that. The same with your local witchcraft shop. If they happen to do that, they may have my books there already. But if they don't, if you ask for them, they will very happily order it for you. And sometimes you can find them in the library. And if your library does not have them, you can ask your library to order them, and sometimes they will. Oftentimes they will. So yeah, you can find them in many places. One of the things that I like to warn people about, unfortunately, the tarot deck is pirated a lot. Many of the places that you see it, it is not the real thing. The real deck comes with the cards and the guidebook in a very nice box. If it doesn't look like that, it's not the right thing. If it says, oh, here's the cards, there's a QR code on the back that you can download the guidebook. No, you can't. And they're probably going to give you a virus. So my suggestion for people who want the tarot deck is go directly to Llewellyn. That way, for sure you are getting the real thing. Because I literally get emails every single week from somebody who says, oh, I bought your deck and I can't find the guidebook anywhere. Can you send me one? And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm sorry. I don't have them either. They don't come separate. So yeah, word of warning. So far, the oracles mostly seem to be okay, but I'm sure they'll catch up with those too. So just make sure it's the real thing. And, if it looks way cheaper than the normal price, if it's an $8 deck and it's normally, a $32 deck set, it's probably not real, Yeah. So just be careful. That's Deb's public service announcement for the day.
Well, thank you. And thanks for mentioning that, actually, because I have been seeing that is a growing issue with these pirated tarot decks.
It's horrible. And pirated books.
Yeah.
If you see one of my books for free someplace, I guarantee you it's pirated, and I'm not getting any money. The publisher's not getting any money. And what happens when authors have their things pirated so much, they stop writing because they can't afford to write anymore. So do not do pirated things. That's right. Bad things will happen. Just saying.
It's unfortunate that we live in that kind of environment where
it's insane.
Like that.
When I started writing, it never occurred to me that this was something I was going to have to deal with. I mostly just like putting my books out there so that people can find joy in them and, learn things and, I don't know.
Yeah.
Of cool stuff.
Well, and your writing style is so accessible. It's so direct. It's the perfect. I feel like reading your books is an experience in that coziness that people want when they come to the craft. So thank you for writing so many books.
I appreciate
thank you for being on the show.
And thank you.
And I appreciate you inviting me. What I want people to feel like when they read my books is like they're sitting across the kitchen table from their friendly neighborhood witch and, maybe drinking a cup of tea or a glass of wine, depending on what day it is, and just saying, well, how do I do this? And I'll share my wisdom with them. And thank you for sharing me with the world.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Merry meet,
Merry part, and merry meet again.
Thank you for joining us on the Magic Kitchen podcast. Please visit my website, leandrawitchwood.com, for news, information, and more episodes.
I'm Elise Wells, and I can be found at Seeking Numina on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and seekingnumina.com. That's Seeking, Numina.